In a jewelry store window of a large shopping center, a sign was posted which read, "Crosses for sale, half price." In our culture, it seems, or it means very little to wear a cross. For many, it is a meaningless piece of jewelry. When many famous people wear a cross, they are usually not making a faith statement, perhaps a fashion statement, but not a faith statement. I wonder if it were not for all the jewelry, including crosses, how many Major League Baseball players would steal more bases. All that jewelry slows them down. It's true. Have you seen how much they wear around their necks? By the way, I have a suggestion. This week, wherever you meet a person wearing a cross, step up to him or her with a big smile and say, "Thanks for wearing the cross. I'm a Christian too." If that person gives you a puzzled look and mumbles something about it being just a piece of jewelry, then you can ask, "Would you like to talk about what it means to be a Christian?" You might discover a marvelous opportunity for a witness. Think about that for a while. Contrast our situation with some cultures where today the cross can cost you your life. In Nepal today, there are 168 people in the court system charged with nothing more than being a Christian. Recently, a Christian named Abraham was killed in India by a hostile Hindu group after Bishop Dolk of Indonesia went to visit in the U.S., and when he returned home, he found that Muslim groups had burned down many of his churches, and one pastor's family was burned to death within the church building. Christians today are the most persecuted religious group in the world, and the persecution is intensifying. Crosses are not cheap everywhere. Jesus said, "If anyone wants to be my follower, he must deny himself, take up his cross daily, and follow me." In that context, a cross refers to some suffering or sacrifice that you undertake voluntarily out of love for Christ and concern for people. Carrying a cross will not earn you a ticket to heaven. Those tickets are free gifts from God, paid for by Christ on a cross. But if you have received the free gift of salvation, gratitude will create inner compulsion, a desire to carry crosses for Christ's sake. Now, a disturbing question. Where in your life or in my life is there any cross bearing? Where is there any suffering or sacrifice for Christ or other people? These are heavy thoughts, I realize. Let me take you to the biblical passage that triggered these thoughts. Luke chapter 14, beginning with verse 25. Let me set the scene. Jesus is in the latter stage of his 3-year ministry on this earth. In fact, he is on the way to Jerusalem, where he will be executed. Among the general public, Jesus is at the apex of his popularity. Great crowds are following him because they have seen his miracles and heard his teaching. Also, they like the way he puts down the self-righteous big shots. But Jesus can tell that most of these folk don't understand him even a little bit. Their loyalty is about as thick as a palm leaf. They think he is headed to a coronation instead of a crucifixion. They think they are following a conquering hero. And they have no idea that Jesus will be suffering as a scapegoat for the world's sin. So perhaps as they take a break, have lunch, Jesus says to the crowd, in effect, "Everybody sit down over here or on this grassy knoll. I need to have a heart-to-heart talk with you." The If anyone comes to me and does not hate his own father or mother, and wife and children and brothers and sisters, yes, even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. I can imagine the people's eyes open wide as they whispered to each other, did he say what I think he said? Hate my father, hate my mother, my brother, my sister, my wife, my children, everybody, even myself. You need to understand at this point that it was the custom of teachers in the first century to overstate in order to make a point. For example, Jesus said elsewhere, if your eye causes you to sin, gouge it out. Also, we need to note that in the Aramaic language which Jesus spoke, the word for hate means literally to love a great deal less than. So perhaps Jesus was really saying, unless you love me a great deal more than anything or anyone, you cannot be my disciple. In fact, that's the way the gospel writer Matthew renders this troublesome statement. Then Jesus added, don't start anything unless you have first considered the costs and are prepared to meet them. Jesus used two examples. No one builds a watchtower in a vineyard without first checking to make sure he can afford to buy the materials. Otherwise, he will build half a tower, then run out of materials and become a laughingstock in the community. Similarly, no king takes an army out to fight a rival army without first considering whether his army is strong enough to win. If his is not strong enough, he sends emissaries, an ambassador, if you will, to ask for peace terms. Then Jesus turned to this crowd of sunshine followers and said, in effect, before you continue following me, you'd better consider whether you are willing to pay the price. If you are just here for show, go home. If you stick with me, it will cost you. For the golf enthusiasts among us, Gary Player is still a great golfer. In his prime, he won more international golf tournaments than anyone else. Often through the years, fans would approach him and say, I would give anything to be able to hit the ball like you do. Usually Player would respond in some polite, humble way. But one day, a tired and frustrated Gary Player heard that statement once too often. He responded, you would give anything to hit a golf ball the way I do if it were easy? Do you know what you've got to do to hit a golf ball like I do? You've got to get up every morning at 5 o'clock, go out on the course and hit 1,000 golf balls. Your hands start bleeding. You walk to the clubhouse, slap a bandage on your hand, and then you go out and hit another 1,000 golf balls. That's what it takes. You would give anything to hit a ball like I do if it were easy. But because it's not, you never will. Now have a nice day. It's just like we all wonder, why can't those baseball players hit a home run every time? Ever tried to hit a ball coming at you, a baseball coming at you at 92 to 100 miles an hour? And it's got about 2 seconds between the time it leaves the pitcher's hand and goes by you, and you say, "Hi, ball." It's not easy. And they practice every day. In his own way, Gary Player was echoing Jesus' theme of long ago. Before you establish a goal or undertake a task, count the costs. Perhaps if we're more honest, we would invite unchurched people into our fellowship in a different way. Instead of just advertising our church school classes, inspirational worship services, youth group, the Sunshine Corner, and all the rest, perhaps we should say this. If you choose Christ as your Lord and Christ's church as your family, it will cost you big time. You will give far more money to his causes than you think you can afford. You will carve out precious blocks of time in which to serve other people with no pay. You will make other people's troubles your own troubles. You will take unpopular positions on controversial issues. You might lose some friends, especially those who like to tell racist jokes. They won't find you a congregational companion anymore, or congenial, rather, companion anymore. Your friends who like to spend evenings at the strip club won't find you willing to make a trip anymore. And catch this. If you will follow this new lifestyle, not because you have to, but because you want to, and by the way, in the process, you'll have the time of your life. In verse 27 we read, "Whoever does not bear his own cross and come after me cannot be my disciple." Crosses involve suffering, sacrifice. No one likes to suffer or sacrifice. Suffering and sacrifice, even for a good cause, are seldom attractive to very many people. So what is your cross? There are crosses all over just waiting for shoulders to lift them. In a church, every person should be able to name his or her cross. Tony Campolo tells about a young woman named Nancy whom he met in Philadelphia. She's confined to a wheelchair. When Tony asked her why she was in a wheelchair, she said, "By trying to commit suicide. I was living alone. I had no friends. I hated my job, and I was constantly depressed. So I decided to jump from the window of my apartment, but instead of being killed, I ended up in a hospital paralyzed from my waist down. The second night I was in the hospital, Jesus appeared to me and told me that up until then I had had a healthy body and a crippled soul, but from then on I would have a crippled body and a healthy soul. I gave my life to Christ right then and right there. When I got up out of the hospital, I tried to think of how a woman like me could come and do some good. And I came up with an idea. I put an ad in the newspaper that said this: "If you are lonely or have a problem, call me. I'm in a wheelchair and seldom get out. We can share over the phone. Just call. I'd love to talk." The results have been astounding. Each week at least 30 calls come in. She spends her days comforting and counseling people. Nancy is a cross bearer. The Methodist pastor and professor at Yale in the first half of the last century, Halford Lukács, asked his two granddaughters one year what they wanted for Christmas. And they responded, "Give us a world." Puzzled by such a request, he consulted their mother. She explained that they wanted a globe. So that's what Granddad bought them. But on Christmas morning, when presents were opened, he could sense that the girls were a bit disappointed. One of them said, "We were hoping it would be a lighted world." "Oh," said Granddad, "I can fix that." So he took the globes back to the store and traded in for ones with lights inside. When he presented these lighted globes to the girls, they were thrilled. Later, Dr. Lukács told a friend about this experience and then commented, "I learned something from this experience. I learned that a lighted world costs a lot more." If we want to light up this world for Jesus Christ, it will cost us more. If in sacrifice, for sure, and perhaps in suffering. Our example is Jesus, who for the joy that was ahead of him suffered and died on a cross and rose again to give his life and love forever.